Crowds gathered in Atlanta's Piedmont Park this weekend, enjoying the sun and fresh air.
It's great to see everybody out and enjoying this weather.
Similar scenes in other areas, including New York City and the National Mall in Washington, D.C.
I've been cooped up for the last 7 weeks, and what a better opportunity to come down and visit the nation's capital.
Other Americans spent their first weekend in May calling for the reopening process to speed up. One such event was in St. Paul, Minnesota.
End this darn shutdown. It's unconstitutional. It's killing more people than you think you're saving.
But some health officials disagree with that view. A model from COVID-19projections.com says the United States could have more than 150,000 virus-related deaths by August.
We think that for many states that are reopening, that there will be potentially an increase in the number of infections as a result of this reopening.
And some medical workers say they can't handle a surge in cases.
If we reopen, we don't have the capacity for like 6,000 ICU beds. We don't have the capacity to do that. We need to be smart about how we reopen.
I'm going to put a tight squeeze on you over here, okay?
There are two different tests that we are all becoming familiar with. A diagnostic test that searches for the genetic markers of the coronavirus, and this one that tests for antibodies.
I'm going to give you a cold wipe.
First thing you'll notice is that the antibody test requires blood. For me, it was just a poke.
And just like that, we're all done.
But then look at all the steps that take place after that. My blood is taken down to the lab and then spun down in a centrifuge. You're looking at my serum. That's the clear part that might contain antibodies if I have been previously exposed. The way to find that out is fascinating. Just take some of my serum and put it in the same test tube as the virus and see what happens.
If you have antibodies against that, they're going to bind and we're going to be able to detect that.
Dr. John Roback is the medical director of the blood bank at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, where I practice as a neurosurgeon. I was able to get this test because I'm still working as a doctor at Emory, and healthcare workers are considered to be at high risk for COVID-19. Here's what happens in your body when you're infected. The blue line, that's how long the virus typically lives inside of you. Take a look at the green line. Early on, IgM antibodies appear, but they disappear shortly after. And then the red line, that's the IgG antibody. That's the one that appears after the infection is cleared and might provide immunity. For just how long, how strong, that we don't know yet. We do know that for other coronaviruses like SARS, antibodies lasted 2 to 3 years, and MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, had antibody presence of about 3 years. But with this new coronavirus, it's still too early to tell.
What is the real value of having the test?
I think if you're positive on this test, it indicates you've been exposed. That can give you a little bit of peace of mind. I think that, the cough I had 2 weeks ago, that was really COVID-19. It could indicate that, some of your close contacts should be tested.
But perhaps most importantly, Dr. Roback told me something I hadn't really considered before, that if you test positive for the antibodies, that means you've dealt with this infection and you've beat it. And chances are that if you're exposed to it again, you'll beat it again. As for me, that part is still an open question mark. I tested negative.
BioNTech is the only German company so far to have obtained regulatory approval to begin trials for possible vaccines against COVID-19. It's also one of only a handful of companies in the world to already be in clinical trials. Now, the company said on Wednesday that it had completed the first dosing of the new trial vaccine, which is called BNT162. The cohort for this first dosing was 12 people, and they are all now vaccinated. The company says in the second phase of the trial, they want to move to a larger cohort of about 200 people, ranging in ages from about 18 to 55. They want to test a lot of things in that second phase of the trial, but especially whether or not the trial vaccine is actually safe. Now, it's still unclear at what point in time this vaccine is going to be ready for general use, but on a global level, BioNTech works together with the U.S. pharmaceutical company Pfizer And both Pfizer and BioNTech have already said they also want to begin clinical trials in the United States, pending regulatory approval there, which they believe will happen very soon.
I think what we're learning very quickly is this virus does not behave like the viruses we're pretty used to.
Doctors Adam Friedman and Joseph Zahn are dermatologists at George Washington University, seeing some unusual cases.
Interestingly, I had a patient last week who came in complaining of red-purple spots on the toes.
It's being called COVID toes, as in the coronavirus, the potentially deadly respiratory disease.
So the main thing is that it mimics what we call perniosis, which is a reaction in the skin to cold temperatures.
Frostbite.
A little bit less damage than frostbite, but yes, similar concept.
Physicians around the world are uncovering more potential symptoms of COVID-19.
To that effect also, dermatologists are functioning in different roles that they would never have expected in their entire careers.
Including Friedman.
I never thought I would be helping develop something for a pandemic.
He's working with a national team to create a nasal implant.
Oh, they're not big.
That would release nitric oxide through the noses of COVID patients.
Nitric oxide is a central signal for regulating the immune response.
He says there is more testing that needs to be done, but hopes the technology can help people here in the DMV.
We have a lot of patients in ICU who'd really benefit from this.
Victoria Sanchez, ABC 7 News.